how the January 6th committee can continue. The Republicans can shut down the January 6th committee. There's 2 points about this, actually, that I want to make. And the first is that I've had a couple of people, over the weekend, actually, friends of mine in correspondence or conversations, say, why is it such a big deal that Georgia go for Raphael Warnock instead of Herschel Walker? What difference does it make? We've already got, with the tie-breaking vote of Kamala Harris, we've already got functionally 51 votes. And the facile answer, the answer that usually, comes right out of the media, is that it will neutralize Joe Manchin. And that Kyrsten Sinema, who is up for re-election in 2 years, is more and more voting with the Democrats. I think, she sees the handwriting on the wall. And there's nothing wrong with neutralizing Joe Manchin. That's a good thing. But there's a much more important reason, if my understanding of Senate rules is right. And if you know that I'm wrong on this, please correct me. I've tried to verify this, and what I've found on the web seems to verify it. But my understanding of the Senate rules is that when the Senate is completely 50-50, each committee is completely 50-50. Although the leader of the committee is whoever holds the vice president's office, because that's the tiebreaker, right? So the Democrats will control all the committees. But because the committees are 50-50, and it takes a majority vote to change the rules of a committee, and the rules of a committee is where you define whether or not a committee can subpoena testimony, can force testimony, and frankly, whether, brand new committees can even be created. That's all in the Senate rules, and the Senate rules require 51 votes broadly, but at the committee level, they require a majority plus one. So, in other words, if Raphael Warnock is elected, then the January 6th committee in the House could hand their investigation off to a brand new committee in the Senate that could give itself subpoena power. Whereas if Herschel Walker is elected, and weirdly, Herschel Walker referenced this over the weekend in an interview with Politico, although he was talking about the House. He apparently thought he was running for the House of Representatives. But nonetheless, if Herschel Walker is elected, then that January 6th committee will not be able to compel testimony in the Senate. If Raphael Warnock is elected, then they will be able to, in all probability. The senators will have to make the decision to do that. And you might have one senator on the committee who's going to be, I'm going to stop this, sort of like Joe Manchin preventing, changing our voting rules, the For the People Act or the John Lewis Act. He could try to block that. The other thing is that the House January 6th committee does not need to go away. Now, when the Republicans take over, they will take away from that committee the ability to use the major rooms in the Senate, like the Judiciary Committee room, where they hold their meeting, where they hold their hearings right now. The Republicans will take that away. But that doesn't mean that the committee can't continue. John Conyers did this on 2 different issues for years. He did this on HR, 686, 646, whatever that, it's been years now. But for years and years and years, John Conyers was holding hearings and promoting his essentially Medicare for all legislation, single-payer health care legislation. But I think perhaps more consequentially, when the Downing Street memo was published back in 2000, whatever it was, I think it was 2003 or 2004, and the Republicans controlled the House, John Conyers wanted to have an investigation into it. Now, the Downing Street memo was this memo that said, and it was out of the British government, out of Tony Blair's government, that said that, we're going to, quote, fix the intelligence, with fix in scare quotes. We're going to rig the intelligence to conform with this story of weapons of mass destruction and Saddam Hussein representing an existential nuclear threat to the world that George W. Bush and Tony Blair were selling to the world to try to get traction for their invasion of Iraq. their criminal invasion of Iraq, let me add. And so, you know, the Republicans controlled the House. They did not want this investigated. But John Conyers did it anyway. You can, as an individual member of the House, there are a bunch of rooms that you can basically sign up for. And he signed up for one that was, you know, it was essentially a closet. I mean, it was in the basement of the building. It held maybe 5 or 10 people at the most. It was a little tiny room. But he held hearings in that room for almost a year. Maybe more than a year, actually. I don't have the dates specifically for it. But John Conyers did this for quite some time. And, you know, the January 6th committee could conceivably do this. So we'll see where this goes. But those are the two things about that committee that I thought you probably wanted or needed to know about that are fairly important. I want to talk about the danger of the rich and powerful man bubble, and specifically how this is a danger to democracy itself. Right after this break. It's 16 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. Who do you think would make a great candidate for president this time around? We'll be right back.